Kelly, can you hear us? Yeah, we're usually muted before the meeting.
Yep, I can hear you.
Beautiful.
Just making sure. All right, thanks.
We're good. Excuse me, seeing it's 4:45, I'd like to call the November Park and Rec meeting to order. Any changes to the agenda?
No.
And there's no public input. Look for adoption of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Get a second. Motion's been approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At and wall discussion. Ginger.
I was hoping to have Mike Lemke from Holton Brothers zoom in, but he apparently wasn't able to make it. He did go through and look at the wall with Luke and I and walk through and take some pictures and suggestions and what we thought that would be appropriate to fix. We decided to kind of focus on the visible parts of the wall from the major streets, just because visual impact and the money spent is the most important part. I guess the biggest thing out of this quote that I see is obviously the note that says the quote assumes footings in each area are in decent shape. And we all know that there aren't footings on the wall itself. But I asked him about that, and his response was that he didn't see any issue with the groundwork there, and that if there was something put up, it would last quite a long time within within our years. It would definitely improve what we have now. I don't know, you can just look through it. I don't have any suggestions right now because this is just a starting point, but I thought it was interesting. This company has worked with this exact construction in other parks in the state and knows the WPA process, and I appreciate that they would be using the material. They'd be taking apart the wall and putting it back together with the stone that is from the wall. So
And they'll be able to use some of that stone from say,
other places.
that are say
Yes.
deteriorated back.
Yep. Yep, which I think is really good for the integrity of the people that are coming to us and wanting it repaired for the history. And if you're getting it repaired for the history, then you want to keep it as historic as possible. And I've seen repairs done where they're putting in new formed stone, manufactured stone, and it just doesn't maintain the historic value of the
Did he mention anything about cutting any trees down? Say that would be in the way that might be.
No, that would possibly fall on to the wall, are you
Well,
thinking?
say
or-
that the roots and stuff are,
Oh, yeah, from lifting.
yeah.
No.
I don't, yeah, maybe there is none. I haven't looked at all
Yeah.
the sections. he's talking about.
Most of the damage from these is from trees that have fallen or,
That's the area there that we were gonna get the
yep. And
excess stone from.
yeah, yep. I talked to Luke and we even toyed with the idea that we could remove that ourselves.
Got any thoughts on it?
So the estimate that he's got here is.
Right, there's no core base to it, right? It's just rebuilt in the place where it's standing. No,
Because the reason I ask is if the wall is removed and they're leaning to, could our guys do a footing? We've got the equipment. It's not getting hauled from Point or wherever you.
right.
Could our guys do a footing?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
That's a, I don't,
as we do sections of the wall,
right.
if you want to look at. Could our guys do a footing prior, maybe take a little scheduling? Or would that create?
I think part of the deconstruction process is part of this, they want to also take apart the wall,
So I
but I don't know.
guess the question I would ask it is, hey, our guys, you gotta come, you gotta remove, you gotta have to leave all that.
Yeah.
stuff off the
Yeah.
garage. But while that's sitting there, when our guys come in, frame up on
Yeah.
footing and just pour it.
Yeah.
And then he's building off of that
Yeah.
instead of doing it and then 150 years or 100 years.
I know that there would be a base layer put down, of dirt and then gravel, not necessarily concrete, but
Lime
Do it
screen.
just-
lime
the way-
screen, yeah,
Do it the same way they do retaining walls.
right.
Johnny, would they have to do it?
I think the
You
line-
said they're gonna put different use.
Right, yeah. Gravel.
So it's in this cost. You have
Right.
that on there. They have to find something that's gonna be in that. cost.
Right. Right. Grab this and I'm gonna put it on my lot.
The idea would be like.
Right,
Wherever work for our guys. we would want to come in
right.
to help.
And his major point was being, it's lasted as long as it has with the rudimentary skills that were provided in the past. That his, the mortar and stuff that he's going to be using is only tenfold. It will last just longer, if not longer. So we're really worry about that structural integrity, so.
Yeah. So he's got a real common sense approach. not
Yeah.
this, we're dealing with the holy grail.
Right,
Yeah, okay, good.
This is still up just for discussion. So
right.
is there something that we as a committee would like to, so they can get some of this stuff to on capital projects for the next year? Is there something where we'd like to start? Is there anybody here that has an idea what they would like to say, what section we'd want to do first? We want to do the 43,000 one, or that's probably the most visible one, correct?
That's what Luke and I had discussed, is where can we get the most bang for the most buck? And that's obviously that spot where people are gonna say, oh, they are doing something about it. Whereas if you're doing a small location, they're just gonna say, oh, and probably even not notice that we put any money into it at all.
So that's where we're on the road.
Yeah, that's right outside the intermediate school.
That would make sense. Do we have to? Is this gonna be under Park and Rec budget, or is this gonna be capital project?
It would be
It'll go on the capital project schedule, so the capital projects committee would be the ones that actually approve it, but just as long as you guys got a head nod saying that, we've got a line item in there already, I believe. For small. We'll just make sure we have, you know, this dollar amount in there. And then the capital project committee said, yay, or nope, sorry, we've got a maximum of $10,000. So maybe we look at one of those two after we look at all the projects and the equipment. We'll have to confirm, Ginger, too, if we do a project like this, 43,000, if my gut's telling me we got to bid that out per
Yeah.
Wisconsin bid specs because it's over 25,000 right off the bat.
And he's well aware of that.
Does that sound like the direction we all want to go? I'm getting a head nod from everybody. Mike?
Is there any way we could try to get individuals to put money toward this?
Who's that?
I thought if we did the first big section, you might ramp up interest in town of getting the rest of it restored. That might be.
Show them what we
show
can do.
what we can do, and then maybe you get the business interested in donating for the rest or having a community event for the rest. We gotta get something started so they can see what the end result is gonna be.
I think another point of that is that you have to look at the huge structure in the middle of the park that is also of the same construction. And that's a whole nother piece
In the
of the
stadium?
puzzle, yeah. So whether it be reinstate and get re-engage the Hatton Stadium Foundation and get their energy back up, I don't know. That's something certainly that if you want me to pursue, I can.
Those are two distinctly different.
They are, but it's,
I think once you do that wall there, and we're able to do that, just that section where everybody's gonna see it right across the school.
Yep.
Every day at 3 o'clock, there's cars lined all the way through there. I think if you get that going, that would help
right.
generate interest within the community of all of it, of the whole park. You know, it is historic.
Ginger, I think it'd be beneficial to contact that foundation as well, at least get their thoughts on it. And if they're willing to do something, you know, especially after it's voted on, if this goes through and like Dave said, if the improvements are made, people are willing to jump on board easier.
The foundation itself, the bylaws are set up, because I'm on it. Foundation itself is only set up to work on the stadium. They did talk about it, when they formed, whether it was just gonna be the entire park or just focus on the stadium. They felt like the stadium was gonna be enough for them to, a big enough bite for them to bite off. So their bylaws are just to put funding in the stadium. So that.
Interesting.
So these 5 areas are have been identified as being. Is there any other areas that are items of there?
Not visible, like up in the trail system, there is a lot more. But I just financially speaking, not even that, I would think that would be something we could even bite off.
These 5 areas are just pretty much along the road.
In last talks, that was what we were gonna focus on is the
And there's a real nice section in between Highway County X and the interior of the park that's visible to Highway X, but that's in nice condition for the most part, until you get way back and then it actually goes right into swamp water. Yeah.
I don't think we need a motion on getting this capital projects. Like that, I guess then we'll just
Maybe leave it at that.
have to have some kind of action chat for capital. I think it's on what's there. Because I think Ginger can put that on her wish list when she puts it into capital projects, I think.
I remember seeing it.
We've had it on.
But I now have a number to put back on it on.
anything to say about it? Or thoughts?
Hold on a minute, just let them see what our next step is. He's looking at the capital projects right now.
Yeah, it's not on there right now, so we'll make sure. And for capital projects, we're only be doing, recommending a couple items at this point in time, the ones that are timely, that we've done in the past, is the police cars are got such a long span for getting ahead of time, so there'll be a couple things like that. So.
Yeah.
But a little update on Blackwood Trail, continuing with the DOT, working with our attorney, who has just yesterday sent out the initial document to Canadian National, informing them that we want to get together, start talking about the easement that we want to have with having the trail along with the tracks. One of the things that he must have known when he worked on this the last time he was hired with the city. The original easement years ago did have language in there to allow for the track and the trail together. So he pulled that out and sent it to Canadian National. So we're starting in the process for that. So we're just in the beginning of the process to make sure we got all the legal documents figured out for getting the trail along with the tracks. The other thing with the community development block grant, we just want to kind of bring everybody up to speed on the timelines on this community development block grant are just insane. They're pushing to get all these grants done. One of the things we found out with our grant award is that we got to have some construction in 2021 already. It's just with the timelines for whatever reason that they're giving us. So the one easy thing that we can do for this, just to show that we've done some work. So the new Blackwood Trail currently comes along the road here. Get this on for Kelly so she can see it. You should be able to see it now. So Blackwood Trail currently parallel to Highway 54 and stops at House Road right here. And then from here, there's existing tracks that aren't being used. And then we have the tracks that can be used and is starting to be used by Granite Valley Forest Products along their rail line. So the game plan for us is to continue the trail along the rail bed here. And then once we get to usable tracks, we're going to jump north a little bit and just go along parallel with the tracks. And just get on the other side of 45, come along 45 to the north, and then come down the river road, get to a point and put that bridge in Blackwood Park. So one of the things that we have to do anyway, we have to remove this section of track in here on the north side that's not being used, it's never going to be used. For this project, so we can put the trail along the track. So that's a big step we're going to do right now in hiring a contractor to come and just remove that track for salvage value. So I mean, there should be some salvage value for that rail and the ties that are there. So I'm interested to see what the bids come out. They should be pretty decent because there's salvage value in there. So we're actively doing that right now. So by the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have to have a special Parks and Rec meeting, a special city council meeting, probably the week after our normal city council meeting, so we can approve the bid spec quick, bid contract quick, so that a contractor can come in and start doing some work before the end of the year. We don't want to wait till the December council meeting to award that contract. That's only in a couple of weeks before December 31st, Christmas is there. So fortunately, we found out with some of these timeline type things. Got to get something done in this year's within 2021. So that was the easiest thing that would have to be done anyway. Just want to give everybody a heads up that we'll probably have to have a special Parks and Rec council meeting more than likely the week after our normal city council meetings. We had to put a class 2 notice in the paper, which is 2 consecutive weeks in the paper for the bid specs and jump through all the hoops with the bidding process. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, when Kent was, that time when we were talking about tearing that whole thing out, there was quite a bit of value in that. Maybe the salvage prices have changed since then, but there, I was amazed at how much salvage there was in that right of way.
I think they've only went up too since.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hopefully.
That was 2014. Dennis voted, because we were at a stalemate and we finally, the city council came to a vote at one point to say salvage it.
mhm.
And then there was a last ditch effort and the railroad and the lumber company wanted to continue it. But that section from there to, that was like 100, not including that section you're on there, but was like $100,000. So
Yeah.
hopefully, that was 2014 and the prices are.
I remember there was quite a bit of value in that at that time.
But I do want to keep a little chunk in here just for the heck of it, that if maybe this property here would ever become developed, that this could be
Spur in there?
rail accessible property. Just, you never know. Not saying that anything's in the works or anything, but there could be another spur that comes off, and I think we just want to be prepared if that ever would happen. It could be a possibility.
And our attorney feels pretty confident that we'll be able to go along the railroad because they were kind of henny about that.
He was, and he said, you know what, if you're gonna go to any railroad company with the initial conversation, their initial reaction is gonna be no. So that's just gonna be the initial reaction. You gotta jump through these hoops with them. And he's found some documentation in the original easement saying that was intended for the trail.
Yeah.
So
There are plenty of rails to trails instances throughout the state, so.
That Mike?
When we were talking about the section that goes toward Granite Valley, the rail company claimed all that would have to go back to them, salvage rights. Is it gonna be something that way here, or is this rail gonna be actually ours that we can get rid of it?
to my understanding, the DNR owns the land and the city owns the assets. The city owns the track.
Something to really look at, because I know there was some questions when we,
Because we have what's called an ITA, industry track agreement with Canadian National to operate on our track on here. So it's not, like John Varda was saying in his conversation, it's not a main rail line that they own. They operate on our track. And so we have an industry track agreement with them to operate on this. There was a special term and I can't remember what he said it was.
Well, and the lady from the DNR confirmed it as well. That it was our track that she said, it's a very rare instance, but.
Because what happened, the history of that is when Wisconsin Central at the time gave up the rights for this section all the way to Seymour, in John Varda's conversation, he said there was an error and they should have had like this as the mile marker for the end point for giving up the tracks to Seymour. And actually the document screwed up and the end point ended up being down in here, which they shouldn't have allowed since this was currently be able to be used at that time. They shouldn't have gave up the rights for this section of track. So for whatever reason, this is the end point down in here for when they gave up the rights or did the land or whatever to the DNR. So it's that mile marker 39 point something.
So the tracks that Granite Valley is using right now is owned by the city?
Owned by the city. So there's been several grants. There's been several DOT state grants that have renovated it. And we have an agreement, and I've read through it really briefly, but we have an agreement with Granite Valley Forest Products. I believe they're responsible for all the maintenance for the tracks because they're the ones using it. I got to confirm that. But my initial blush at that agreement with them is they're responsible for rubbing and snow plowing or whatever it has to be for use of that track.
So there's no plans on tearing up the track that they're using.
Not right
They
now.
would be going next to the track.
Yes, we would go parallel on the north side of the track with the trail. Because like Johnny was indicating, what, like 7 years ago, we got to the city council got to the point, and say, all right, we're just gonna yank up the entire track, put the trail there. Well, Granite Valley Forest Products came around and said, whoa, we don't want to lose that, because they weren't using it, and everyone's like, well, if nobody's gonna use it, let's pull it up and get a trail in there. But they came back, and then this Kent Hagar at the time worked with John Varder, the attorney that we have, and got a DOT grant for enhancing that track. And I believe Granite Valley Forest Products paid for the city's share. There was like a local match that had to be involved with that. I believe they paid for that share.
They made an agreement that they would have so many people working or so many cars or something to be coming in and out of there. That was in the agreement too. I remember that when we had that drawn up that time when Kent was administrator, there were some stipulations that they had to fulfill on their end in order to get in order for us to leave the track there for them. I don't remember what they all were in there.
That might have been in the grant process that they have to have.
Could have been, there's quite a bit of discussion about
They-
it. that time.
I've had both Granite Valley and Canadian National in the last month or two contact me, and I haven't physically seen a car yet go out there, but supposedly they're starting to use it again. And another point with all this is that this section of track is being sold to Wadco. It's going to be called the Foxy line or something like that.
Oh.
And that's in process. The sale has to be approved by some federal board, I believe, and it's just waiting in the wings for that to happen. So that's another level of complexity that we've got. Canadian National we're dealing with, but it's going to be a Wadco rail line in the near future. And there, John Varda believes that when Wadco gets involved, then there's a lot more usage on these short track rail lines in the state and in other areas.
And they've advertised that Watco has this mapped out on their website already, that these lines are gonna be used again, and they're going all the way to Manawa. And those lines haven't been used, and I mean, there's trees over them. So I don't know
It's tore out
if
by
they've
Manawa.
taken a look at them yet, but they have a map that
There's
goes.
no
No.
trail through, there's no tracks through Manawa. That's tore out. They tore the
I
tracks
think they
all out.
sold the rail line,
Yeah.
whether they're going to use them or not.
Right.
But I mean, that was a part of,
The map,
those were involved in Canadian National's assets. This
Right.
was the assets that they
Yeah.
were,
yeah.
the rights for those lines and those tracks.
So they were talking about turning that into a trail. Manawa's,
There's been talk about that, but
Manawa's talking about that.
Yeah,
so Wapaka County would have to start getting
Right.
in touch
Yeah.
with Watco and developing those conversations.
Interesting.
Is there any plan B? Like, is there any other way you could come in on S to Water Street?
No.
It just seems like a big liability to have a trail right next to an active railroad. I just wondering if there's any backup plan if this doesn't go through.
I think this is actually Plan M.
yeah, I was gonna say.
We've been looking at how do we get from point A to point B. We looked at, trying to come in on North Water Street. And if you know North Water Street, I mean, the bridges and stuff that are right along here, there's really no enough shoulder to get through in some of these areas. So that, I mean, especially through in here, there's not a lot of room. We wouldn't be able to build up because it's so wetlands on either side in there. But there's plenty of situations where there's rails with trails situations in the state. And this is a good candidate, number one, because it's a low speed track. I mean, they're gonna have to, when the train comes in, they're gonna come from the southeast, and then they're gonna have to back up. And they're not gonna get a lot of speed before they back up and come around the backside of it. So number one, and a good thing in our case, it's gonna be a low speed track. Number two, we're putting a fence in between here. There's gonna be a, just a chain link fence to keep people off, set the boundaries through there. And then Once we turn north, there's actually a nice little ridge right here we can run. And this has barricade all the way along here, already on the road. So both the DOT and DNR felt like this was a good candidate for a rails with trails situation. I mean, if this was, 100 cars a day and they're moving at 80 miles an hour, it probably wouldn't be a good situation. But since it's such a small stretch, low speeds, and we're putting the fence in there,
They're also proposing the recreational immunity standard, so that's pretty much a given.
but we've looked at trying to go along 54. That wasn't ideal because especially for the snowmobiles, if they're going westbound, you would have to have a barricade high enough to hide the headlights so that oncoming traffic isn't confused with that. It's just that you've got quite a bit of transportation routes in here and then a lot of wetlands in here to get to Pfeiffer Park.
What do you got? Anything else on it? Questions? 2022 weight schedule.
That was in your packets. This is just based off the 2022 operating budget with the 50-cent increase for seasonal staff. There's no other changes from the 2021 one at this time, so it's just needs to be approved. So that we can.
Anybody got any questions?
Approve the new wage scale.
Got a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the 2022 wage schedule. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the old boat launch dock discussion. Ginger.
Okay, so after our meeting in October, when we went down by the boat launch docks, it was requested that he put some quotes together for pricing material to refurbish them. I included those in the memo. If you've taken a look at them. I don't know. Just from looking at them, you can see that it would be a lot to refurbish them. Not saying that we can't do it, but it would be very pricey still. So we're looking at, we do have a list of people, and I know Michelle can attest to this, that we've had a lot of people call and ask if they can buy them from us. So I think that's something that we do need to consider. There's a lot of additional costs besides the list here, including the engineering costs and making sure that they're ADA accessible. It will also have to be a project that is done with the possibility of the overflow parking and loading zone docks, because if we want to take this money out of the boat launch funds, which we would have to wait until those funds grow. Also, we're still waiting for the bill from the kayak launch, but that bill for those new docks will deplete that fund quite a bit. So
Is there any estimation on how much the docks are worth if we were to sell them?
they're worth whatever you can get for them. Yeah,
we could put a reserve price if you want,
Yeah.
but
you can.
I would make a suggestion that we do that, because you got all them aluminum in them docks. I mean, they're worth it.
Right.
I don't have a figure.
Your reserve price should probably be based off that square foot of aluminum, but other than that, really, you're only gonna get a little bit of use out of those boards and those styrofoam floats.
Most of them are worn.
Right.
Um,
I've looked at them and
Somebody's going
I
to
don't
have
want
to put their own floats on if they buy them from us. So,
Well, and if somebody buys them, they can put barrels under them.
right.
They don't have to put
Exactly.
floats on them. So if somebody buys them at a reasonable price, they can put barrels under them. They don't have to put floats under them. So that they're gonna save
Absolutely.
themselves some money doing that.
Absolutely.
I've had a couple, 3 people call me and ask me what was going on with the when we were gonna make a decision on that.
The money that you get from selling the docks, would it go back into the fund?
Yes, it
Lunch
will.
fund? Yep.
Yep.
I don't think it'll be a high dollar amount though, Tim. But it depends, you know, you open it up and people have different ideas what they can. There are some people that got private lakes that won't ever have to deal with putting them in or out. And you can put waterlogged styrofoam on a lake and it'll float for 100 years, but not the way that you would in a public facility or on, you could get away with on a public waterway. So, yeah, I got a couple names of people that live down the river.
Mhm.
I would like to see it move forward before we get to winter. I mean, we're gonna have a sale because he's got some other stuff over there too that he wants to get rid of.
Correct. We'll be posting some vehicles and things like that. in the coming week.
Myself, I'd like to see it before winter time, because somebody's not gonna want to deal with their moving docks out there. Put a snow on the ground, who knows what the next 2 weeks is gonna bring.
Well, I was gonna suggest that as well in the bidding process, that would be as cleanup for X amount of time too. You know,
Yeah.
the next 30 days to remove
Get
it
them
or
out of
something.
there, yeah.
We have a deadline of the end of the month for the rest of our stuff that we're selling. So,
I agree with Bob too, because if we get into a real serious snow event this winter, it'll be a blessing to have them gone.
Yeah.
Because in a pinch, that's a spot that you can load some snow quick.
absolutely.
Any further talk on then the reserve bid, or
Yeah.
is that of
That's-
interest to anybody?
What would you think, John? You deal with the docks. What would you think a price to put on one would be?
I don't know, you know, based on, these are really good numbers that Ginger and Luke put together and stuff. Based on that and the prices of inflation, they're gonna bring more, but I think the only thing you can really look at is your square inch of aluminum that are in them docks. So, I mean,
We're saying the floats are bad anyway. So
yeah, nothing else about them would be honest with you. That's how I would, if you were gonna put a reserve bid, I would just open it up. The goal being to get rid of them before. So I would open it up to if you want to put a minimum bid on them.
I think you'd have to have it higher than the scrap price, otherwise we just scrap them for aluminum. I mean,
Right.
Well,
Yeah, but then the city has to take them all apart.
it wouldn't be,
That's gonna
it
cost
wouldn't
the
be the
city.
scrap price on the aluminum. It would be, what would it cost me for, well, so for example, how many feet of dock we got there?
145.
145, and then his price on the aluminum here was what, $8 a foot?
Mhm.
So
So what could a guy, buy new for?
I think you put a minimum bid of $300 a dock. You'll still get rid of it. Because otherwise, we're gonna get stuck with them if you put it too high. Right.
that's the thing. You don't want to get stuck with
Right.
them.
You know, and then we bid on. it.
Yep.
And you get, accept the highest bid, and if anybody else wants them for that same price, let them have it. 15 years ago, I bought some salvage docks and they're $50 for 20 feet of dock. I had to put in maybe $1,000. You know, that was 15 years ago. I don't even know if 300 might be a little high, Bernie, but because they're gonna have to get a flatbed truck and some way to lift them on and off because they don't fit a standard trailer. I mean,
I wouldn't even put a minimum on it.
just bid them, get rid of them.
Even if they get it for less than what the scrap metal's worth, somebody still has to take them apart. the city who,
Oh, they gotta haul them between now and
no,
December.
I'm saying if we don't, if they got it for less than what the scrap was, people are gonna say the city's losing money, but we're not, because we have to pay workers to actually take them apart to get to the scrap. And then you gotta junk the rest of the stuff, and that's not free either.
Just the cost and dismantling
Yeah,
and stuff.
I
I
would
looked
just-
into that.
Just sell
How
I'm
many-
not sure you're talking about Wisconsin service.
We
would
just do a
silent
sealed
bid.
bill,
Huh?
sealed bid.
Field bid. And what I would recommend is what we did for bleachers that we did a while back. We would just have, you would put a price per dock of what you would want to pay for per dock. And then if Fred is the highest bidder per dock, you get a choice of the first, how many you want? 3? You take 3. Here's the second highest one, then you take as many as you want. You keep on going down. You just price per dock, and then if that highest bid wants all of them, that highest bid gets them all.
Mhm.
And you just keep on going down the line until you got them done.
A dock is what, 2 ramps or something?
Yep,
Well, however we do it,
3 ramps or whatever, but you,
there's 2 ramps.
yeah.
or you could do the ramp separate too.
Yeah.
Whatever, we can figure that out, but
If they want the ramp, they can have it.
No, that's not on here for an item to vote on tonight. Can we vote on that?
on the agenda.
That's an action
Yeah.
item.
I would feel more comfortable if you did.
Yeah, I would,
Just direct staff to put them out to bid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that we have existing, the 4 that we took away, we'll just keep those for,
Do we want to keep those? Or what?
we took them away already, didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But do we
Didn't
want
take
to
much.
keep them?
Really looked at them and they were the ones that were in the best
I don't
shape.
really vote. I used to when I was little though.
And they're not in real good shape
Do
neither.
you
The
No.
do
floats
you
are.
really want to save
Hey,
them or
I don't,
That's what I'm saying. Do
Put
we
'em-
want to get rid of all of them?
if somebody wants them, let's go with it.
it wouldn't take much
Does
to bring them back.
someone have
or
any-
They can come get them where they are.
Does someone have I don't know how we want to do a motion on it, to get rid of all of them before they took apart or they took behind the garage and put them all on their consignment seal or however they're going to do it?
Well, I think your action motion would be to authorize the city to
Sell the docks.
Put 'em to bid.
sell the docks.
Yep.
Whether or not, I mean, there's gonna be a response of, you're not gonna. Whatever's there that the public can view, and then if you had a really huge response and Luke's looking at those docks that he moved back there and he really call up. That you pick from the highest bidders and.
Like
move
Chad's
along.
idea of the silent bid, do you put that in the paper then, that we're taking bids for this?
Paper
then
and
having a
Facebook.
Deadline?
Yep, we'd create some type of form and they would just fill out the form saying, that I bid $200 per dock or whatever. And then the highest bidder, how many you want? You want 3? You pick the first top 3. The second highest bidder, you pick the next ones and get them out of here.
They take whatever
Yep,
ones they're
they take the
picking,
ones that they
get a
want.
certain amount of time to get rid of them out of there.
Highest bidder gets first choice.
Is everybody all right with that? A motion to that effect? So,
Including the 4 that are at.
That's the question. Number 1, direct staff to sell the docks that we have. Or if you want to include the other 4, that tell them all or what.
I would say sell them all. I don't know how
Would
everybody else
include
feels
all of
about it.
All that money is gonna go back in the dock
Yeah.
or the boat launch fund to be used for the future projects.
Otherwise, they're gonna end up like the ones that are, and there's another one, we should have somebody go out there and scrapper, go out there and see what we could get for them old docks that out there by the dog park. If some guy goes out there and cuts them up, we get $200. It's better than letting them set over there and rust for,
Put those up for bid too right away. If anybody wants those, I don't know.
scrap
The
is all they'd
very
be good
last
for.
person can go out and
Yeah,
take a
let's
look
do
at
them
that.
first.
But if someone offers us $20 for them and takes them off our hands, that's labor that we don't have to pay for.
Yeah,
I would say that would be good. That'd be $20 in your pocket rather than sitting over there rusting. That's how I feel about it anyway. I mean, I don't like.
Maybe
seeing some-
parts on there that they can use for the new ones.
There might be. So is that, do we get a motion to the effect of
Sell it all.
sell them all and put them up on a bid like Chad suggested? Does that sound logical, to everybody?
Yes.
Make the motion. Chad, you dictate it.
you're making a motion to direct staff to sell the docks, all the docks that are at the boat launch, the docks that we took away, and the old docks down at the dog park.
That is correct.
You got a second to that motion?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Director's report.
It's quite lengthy, so I'll just touch on a couple different things. I know that you've seen the Outagamie County Corpse project on the agenda for before I started. I did reach back out to Lauren and he clarified now that they're still in the process of that. So we were very premature on requesting him. But he said just to hold tight and he will, as soon as he's ready, have a conversation with us. Probably be in December, January sometime. So that was good. I put the sculpture park also on hold for a while, just because there's a lot more that's gonna go into that than I think than just throwing whatever she's making into the park. And, you know, I want some guidelines. I want some thoughts, more thought to that. So I'm told her just to hold tight on that as well. I want to make sure there's a time limit on those. Some suggestions to what we've talked about with, you know, having it pertain to nature and having it fit in the city of New London's look. And so that'll be coming down the pipeline. Another thing that we've been talking about within the special event realm is Chief Leader, Nicole Lemke and Chad and I met this morning about we're getting some fairly large special events that are coming in that are wanting to have events in the city. And some thoughts and that are going with that is right now they're not aligning with our current ordinances as far as open intoxicants go, animals being allowed at special events. And there's one in particular that has already started to promote their event and say they're going to have open intoxicants downtown and they're going to have, it's a pet friendly event and we haven't even approved it yet. So we're meeting with that person on Monday afternoon and then kind of considering changing our special event permit application and some specifics that go with that. Chief Schlueter made a very good point that just completely blew my mind is that they have officer reserves come in from Wapaka County that typically there's 30 reserve officers for the county and currently there's only 4. So they need that support specifically at New Dublin. They asked for that support and you know that costs a lot of money to bring in that additional security. So we need to kind of decide, is that going to be on our backs? And we do want special events in the city and we want to bring people to the city, but those are costs that we're going to be seeing. And if we're going to pass that off onto special events or how we're going to do that. So just keeping in those conversations and I'll keep you in the loop about that because that would eventually have to go through approval with you. So, and that's about it. You can read the rest. Any questions to it at all? You can always obviously contact me if you have any other questions.
Chairman's report. I have none. Any committee members have anything that they want to talk about?
I'd like to bring up the start times. Been discussed in the past or brought up to a couple aldermen, myself, about the start times of committees. And that'll be a future item on council. Looking at if we have to host that special council meeting, that second one, we'll probably discuss it there. See what times work better. Some of our meetings start at 4:30, some of them are at 4:45. We have one at 5 o'clock. Like to get that a little bit better situated. Some people had asked to have them at 6, some have asked to have them at 5, so we can have that discussion, what works best for everybody, and maybe we can pull in some more public input, fill our chairs back there. Just look at that for a future item.
Anybody got anything else on that? Future agenda items. Guess we got the guy from the railroad. I guess we'll be fine about Newton Trail.
Yeah. So we'll do another update on the Newton Blackmore Trail. That'll be the next
Special.
agenda will be in regards to that. Yeah. So that will probably come down. The bid opening's that Friday, correct? Chad?
Sounds right. I think, let's see.
It's Friday, the 14th or 12th, I mean.
Yeah, I think we've got the bid opening for the 12th. Obviously, we got the council meeting next week. So we're probably gonna try to do that special council meeting, Parks and Rec meeting somewhere in here. 16th and 17th. And like the mayor was talking about, we can double up on, we could do a special Parks and Rec meeting first to review the bids and make a recommendation to council. Then we could do a special council meeting right after that to award the contract and then have your discussion on start times. So that could be probably sometime in here.
I don't think the 19th would be good.
Yeah, I'm thinking somewhere, because if we got the bid opening on the 12th, they're gonna need a couple days to confirm the bids. I'm guessing 16th or 17th, somewhere there.
When are they gonna have the bids for the docks then? They have to get voted on at council. Move to council.
That we haven't. We've just gone ahead and if it's selling things, like we've sold cars and stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
don't have to go to for council.
You guys authorized us to do it. We'll just take the highest bid and,
Yeah, because it'd be authorized at the highest bid.
Yeah, okay.
because you're not awarding a contract per se. If you were awarding a contract, it'd be a different story.
Okay.
There's a certain waiver form we have on, people that sign it as is purchase and
When are you gonna start the process, that process?
We've
does Ginger get that going?
started it.
You get to go.
We've started it today.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, so.
Council has, you gotta have council approval.
you're not approving a contract. You're not-
Okay.
you're not authorizing unbudgeted purchase type thing, so direction from the committee would be fine.
Our next scheduled meeting is December 7th then. They'll say tentative 4:45 unless we decide on a start time.
Nope.
That sound right? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Motion made and